news. California. I thought everybody was leaving California and California had no money. California's $100 billion surplus. What to know about Newsom's spending plan? I think the downside, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about this, just given what we see and how this is being used, and just really things that, quite frankly, could have been done a lot better. But here are the big numbers, right? $100 billion profits of the state. So how will they plan to redistribute that or spend that money now that we have such a big surplus? So we have they're going to spend 128 billion in education spending from transitional kindergarten through high school, a record-breaking sum that works out to this amount. Now, let me ask you this. How do you feel the school systems are in your local area? What are your thoughts below? Leave it in the comments below. Like, do you think you're going to see $128 billion of improvements? Or is that a drop in the bucket of things? And quite frankly, things need to be structurally changed, not just more money. $2.5 billion for housing, including $500 million to fund the conversion of vacant malls and storefronts into homes. So this is a really interesting thing. So, but why does there need to be this much money to convert a vacant mall and storefront? That also goes to different things, right? Like, why do you need this much money to do it? If it makes financial sense for investors and for individuals, they would just do it naturally. So it's so silly, in my opinion. And it doesn't go that far. $500 million, like for commercial plazas. How many commercial plazas do you think that is? It's probably not a whole lot. An extra $3.4 billion to pay down the state employee retirement debt. This is good. And I think there's also a $25 billion in meant as reserves, especially as there are headwinds ahead of us, especially in California, where we make a lot of our money off of taxes and also especially of tech companies. And so when people have IPOs and they have these liquidation events and they do transactions, they will be taxed on it. So those has been very good over the last several years, especially during COVID. You can see California has made a ton of money and has a massive budget throughout COVID because they've also earned a lot of money. The issue now is, okay, we got some headwinds ahead of us. How do they be reserving those funds when it comes to those rainy days? But in my opinion, I don't think this was a good idea. Like, the fact is this: if it were me running and how I would try to change this, and it's hard, I'm sure it's hard to change, but these are bigger things. Take a look at how much housing and how much development is happening in California, and then compare that with like Texas and Florida. So why does Texas and Florida why are they able to build so much more, even though we technically, to be fair, have a much bigger economy than they do? We also make way more money than they do. It seems like it's somewhat simple, and there's a lot of things that can easily be changed if they're willing to put down with it. I mean, easily from just what is the right thing to do versus easy to actually implement. I'm sure that's a different story. But the fact is, see how much construction, all the processes are going. I saw Elon Musk's interview not long ago. He was on, I think, the All In podcast. If you haven't watched the All In podcast, I would highly recommend you watch that, especially for all of you in tech. You will guarantee greatly enjoy that. And he was on the show recently, and he was saying, we built that gigafactory in Austin in a matter of a couple of years. But if they try to actually build that in California now, they would still be in the permit phase, right? And that's just ridiculous. Because we're able to kind of get by with tech companies when it comes to things that are not physical, like not material, right? So we can do things obviously with internet and things like that, and that goes well because we don't actually need the government to really do anything or lay anything down for us. But when it comes to physical building, California has been significantly behind, and a lot of that has to do with those things. Like, people love and want to be in California. But we're doing these things that are not helping that versus other states have been very gracious with that, whether it's lots of land and tax benefits and discounts for that, whether it's just the process of building is significantly faster, right? And so it would have been way more helpful if the government was able to do those types of projects than just give out money, right? Because that doesn't solve anything. Just giving out money doesn't solve anything. Like, there's no real plan. And that's my concern when I see of these things. Same for the housing. Why give that? Why not you spend the time and effort to make it easier of the process wise, right? To be able to build houses or to build lots of small houses, right? If you look at the cost of building these mini homes, even if you had a giant piece of dirt, it's very expensive. Like it's crazy expensive. It doesn't make any sense. And so there, all the new construction you may see for yourself, like all the new apartments and things like that, they're all geared towards luxury homes, and that's the only way to do it for them. And so it doesn't make any sense for what they're doing. I wish a lot of the money could be reallocated. And quite frankly, what would have been way better is they actually just lower the tax amount, right? Give it, that's the easy way to give it directly back to the consumer. So then the consumer can spend more and do whatever they want with it, right? I mean, imagine if you lowered your because other places have done it. I've seen it, like I think Salt Lake City had done it this year or something like that. They had a surplus. They're like, you know what? Doesn't make any sense for us to do anything. We don't know what to do with this. Our management of this money is terrible. Let's just have the individuals do it, right? They can do whatever they want. They get more money in their pocket, right? Imagine if it's a 1% drop in sales tax. That would certainly help individuals across the board. It's basically a 1% discount. So those are my thoughts. But I mean, either way, it's obviously very positive news that the government has made this much money. But you could argue, if they made that much money, did we get taxed too much to begin with? And you can argue yes. Look at the spending budget now, right? For this year, it's a 300 billion, the most ever, and last year was already a very high amount. So what does Newsom want to do? Newsom wants $600 million to convert spaces like offices to housing. Will SF respond? Governor Gavin Newsom massive $300 billion budget proposal includes $600 million to encourage housing conversions, particularly in dense urban areas that have been hollowed out by the pandemic. I think mindset-wise, it's a good idea. There's a lot of office space that could be great to convert. So it looks like there's been some. I brought this up a while ago. That there's been activity to convert these, but they need to do it somewhat affordably, and that's the question. I need to look at this. I haven't looked at that. Star City, sold a competitor last year, turn old commercial buildings into group housing. See, those are massive opportunities. We have so much vacancy right now when it comes to commercial space. I think it's like over 25% in San Francisco. They're in very good areas. They're already built. Like, what are the efforts to make it not just zoned, but also allowed for housing? You don't need all those office spaces right now. It's just way too much.